Good morning, everyone. I'm Filipa Saldanha from the Gulbenkian Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us, those here in the room and everyone watching us online. For those who don't know, the Gulbenkian Foundation is a Portuguese private institution that works hard to contribute to a fair and sustainable society, and we do it through 4 statutory areas: arts, charity, science, and education. Today, I will have the honor to host the award ceremony of the second edition of the Gulbenkian Prize for Humanity, a €1 million international prize entirely dedicated to tackling the climate crisis. During the event, we'll have the opportunity to dive into the winner of this year's prize and to have different conversations with key people involved or impacted by this initiative. So to start, we'll show a short video of the Gulbenkian Prize for Humanity.
Humans are powerful beings, capable of incredible things. We are capable of changing sea levels. We can reverse the weather, raise the planet's temperature, reshape the landscape, erase thousands of species from the Earth's surface. We can also connect people across the globe. Go to great lengths to save the tiniest beings. Venture boldly into the unknown. Create new types of intelligence. And conquer the mystery of life. The Gulbenkian Prize for Humanity rewards people or organizations whose work mitigates the impact of climate change and empowers society for the future.
This means a lot to me, and I hope that it will help me do more good in the world.
There is no limit to our power. Apply it on humanity. Apply for humanity.
This video shows us how impactful are human activities on climate change, but it also reminds us about our capability of doing more good in the world. We can decide if you want to impact our planet and our future in a negative or positive way. As Sir David Attenborough referred in the beginning of this COP, people are the greatest problem solvers to have ever existed on Earth. And I believe this is a good excuse to call on stage the president of the Gulbenkian Foundation, Isabel Mota, will open the floor with some good problem-solving examples. So please, you can stay here or wherever you want. And I will change to that.
Thank you. Good morning. Dear Vice President of the European Commission, responsible for the Green Deal, I think is the most appropriate way to call him, and also dear Michel Bloomberg, that is looking at us, is following us by streaming. So these are both the Vice President Timmermans and Michel Bloomberg, that is the United Nations Special Envoy for Climate. Both are co-founders, co-chairs of Global Covenant of Mayors. Senhor Ministro de Portugal, Ministro do Ambiente e de Climate Action of Portugal, é para nós uma grande honra a sua presença e é um grande incentivo também para a Fundação Gulbenkian a sua presença aqui entre nós. Dear Ambassador of the Global Covenant, Greg Robertson, and Governor of Kisumu County, Professor Peter Nyong'o, dear colleague of the board, Martin Essayan, distinguished members and of the jury and guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to be here today to award the second edition of the Gulbenkian Prize for Humanity, Climate Change, to the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, the largest global alliance of cities committed to fight the climate crisis, which is co-chaired, as I have already said, by Mr. Timmermans and Mr. Michael Bloomberg. Allow me first to thank the United Nations and the European Commission, which together made it possible for the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation to organize such an important event during COP26, where discussions and commitment will shape the future of our humanity. This summit is not only the most important climate event in the world, it is one of the most important diplomatic meetings in history, where we should all be focused on contributions and concrete actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, protect our ocean and land, ensure climate justice, and increase financing commitments. And we all have a role to play. The Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation wants to be a proactive player towards sustainable development. In 2019, we have divested from fossil fuels and relocated our funds in assets with a positive impact on society. Today, we have an investment strategy aligned with environmental, social, and governance criteria. Sustainability is also a core value for philanthropic purposes, mainly to respond to the state of emergency in which the planet and humanity finds itself. The Foundation is dedicated to support work across climate and ocean protection in Portugal, in the UK, where my colleague is in charge, and internationally, together with major partners with whom we share this mission, such as Ocean Azul Foundation and Soares dos Santos Foundation, and that are here present, Dr. José Soares dos Santos. The Gulbenkian Prize for Humanity, created exactly in the same data when we divest from the fossil investments, is the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation committed contribution to help outstanding people and organizations to accelerate the mitigation of the climate change and promote a society that is more resilient to climate impacts while protecting the most vulnerable. In this second edition, we recognize the unique work of Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy in supporting mayors all over the world, leading the transition of cities to low carbon and climate resilient communities. This is a distinctive example of the enormous positive impact that local and collective action may have on in a global scale. As we all know, an example is very much aligned with the desired process and outcomes of COP26. Let me also highlight two facts. Cities represents only 2% of the territory worldwide, but they are responsible for more than 70% of greenhouse gas emissions, and 90% of urban areas are in coastal zones, particularly vulnerable to extreme weather events. This means our races to zero and to resilience requires profound transformations towards a urban planning and management all over the world. As the climate impacts and finance capacity are very much asymmetrical between the global north and the south, the global covenant will use the prize fund to support the energy transition and climate resilience in sub-Saharan Africa, namely in Senegal and Cameroon. Today, we will have the privilege to hear more about our winner and about the nature of the projects to be supported by the prize. In the end, we will have the opportunity to hear from 3 members of our distinguished jury. But last but not the least, I am very happy to announce the call for nominations for the 3rd edition of the Gulbenkian Prize for Humanity will be open next Monday, November 15. Thank you very much for joining us, and hope our messages will be of use and impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your warm welcome and inspiring speech. It is definitely not easy to summarize the extended work of the Global Covenant of Mayors across 11,000 cities, but the video we are about to watch will show us the transformational impact of this alliance in our future. Please note that the voiceover of this video was gently provided by a young climate leader from Ghana, and she is Ellen Lindsay Ayuku.
COVID-19 has changed the world as we know it, and mayors and cities have been on the front lines of both the pandemic and climate change. As we move forward, we have a choice to make. We can return to fossil fuel-powered economies, polluted air, and crumbling infrastructure. Or we can transform our economy and build a better foundation for the future by creating cleaner, healthier, and more resilient communities. That is a green recovery, and it must begin in cities. An investment in low-carbon infrastructure, an investment in millions of new jobs, an investment that serves and protects people, all while confronting the climate crisis. From Paris to Pittsburgh, Accra to Adelaide, hundreds of mayors and cities in dozens of countries have committed to halving emissions by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2050. Because cities are home to over half of humanity and produce 80% of global GDP, they are the key first step in the green recovery, able to deliver nearly half of the emission reductions needed to keep global heating well below 2 degrees centigrade. But city leaders can do more when working together with partners. Cities continue to need partnerships and support from national governments, as well as engagement with communities to deliver green recovery actions that address the COVID-19 and climate crisis together and scale solutions globally. More than 10,000 mayors have committed to the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy and stand ready to partner with local and national leaders to kickstart an inclusive green recovery and net zero future. Join us.
Okay, to celebrate this award, I will now ask Isabel Mota, the president of the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation, and Martin Essayan, trustee of the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation, to proceed with the awards celebration. To the awardees' representatives, Mr. Franz Timmermans, Executive Vice President of the European Commission.
Founder. That is the
Picture of Mr. Gulbenkian.
and Martin is
And-
the great son of Mr. Gulbenkian.
My great-grandfather,
Yes, and also to Greg Robertson, the Global Ambassador of the Global Covenant of Mayors, here representing Michael Bloomberg and co-chair of the Global Covenant of Mayors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I believe we need a picture of
The medal?
the four of you standing.
Oh, right.
Because it's the Global Covenant, it's co-chair,
you are.
so just one.
We are all smiling.
Imagine.
Okay, good, thank you. So I believe everyone would love to hear our awardees, so Mr. Franz Timmermans, may I invite you to say some words?
Absolutely. I am so grateful to the Gulbenkian Foundation for recognizing the role of mayors. Mayors are the ones who are going to decide with their citizens whether this transition to a sustainable world is going to be successful, yes or no. They are close to their citizens, they know what is needed in their cities, they are trusted by their citizens, and they can deliver. So in recognizing their role, the Gulbenkian Foundation sets an important step in empowering mayors across the world to be able to play this role to the fullest. So thank you very much.
And we thank you also for an example of leadership. We'll now hear Mr. Michael Bloomberg video statement. Mr. Michael Bloomberg was not able to join us today on site, so he sent us a video statement. Yes. Yes. No, it's not this one. It's not this one. This is the next one.
Now we get to the right pigeon.
Hello. On behalf of the Global Covenant of Mayors,
Yes.
thank everyone at the Foundation for this award, which we're honored to receive, and for all you do to drive progress on climate change. I also want to thank the European Commission and our co-chair, Franz Timmermans, for his leadership and partnership. Cities are the key to winning the battle against climate change. They are taking action, and by supporting them and helping them work together, we can do a lot to speed up global progress. That's what we're doing through our partnership with the European Commission on the Global Covenant of Mayors. And the fact is, the pandemic has made the work cities are doing even more important and urgent. The funds that come with this prize will go towards our group's work in sub-Saharan Africa, which is home to some of the world's fastest growing cities. It will help protect them from the impacts of climate change in ways that also help them bounce back from the economic impacts of the pandemic. So this prize will make a big difference in a lot of lives. Thanks again, and all the best.
Okay. So the Global Covenant of Mayors is using the prize to support two large investment-ready green infrastructures in two countries in sub-Saharan Africa. One of those projects will be implemented in 5 cities in Senegal to improve the supply of drinking water. So let's see the project, the first project now, please.
The contribution of the foundation is very important in the sense that it is going to be targeting social points of water where otherwise the communities would not have access to clean water.
Concernant le problème d'eau, il y avait des problèmes vraiment très difficiles. Les femmes portaient des bassines et allaient quitter même la commune pour aller vers les autres communes pour chercher de l'eau. Mais depuis leur vote départ jusqu'à présent maintenant, en tout cas les robinets coulent à flot.
The project that the European Investment Bank is implementing together with La Sonesse here in Senegal is very important because what we are doing is providing clean water to the communities and the municipalities, and through this we are achieving improvements in public health, also the question of waterborne diseases, and making more time available for women in the domestic environment so they don't have to spend so much time going to collect water.
Thank you. So we'll now begin our first panel, and we already have with us also Professor Peter Anyong, Governor of Kisumi County. Thank you very much for coming. We'll start with Mr. Franz Timmermans, and we would love to hear from you. It's how the European Union's support to the Global Covenant of Mayors is connected to the European Union's increased climate ambition overall.
And I hope you will indulge me just 1 minute to say why it is so important that a foundation located in Portugal is part of this. I have been a fellow traveler of Portugal's history for the best of 50 years. And I remember when Portugal emerged from dictatorship. I was a young diplomat when Portugal became member of the European Union. And if you look back at the last couple of years, a country with both feet in Europe, with its it looks over the ocean to the rest of the world. Its heart is in Africa. It combines all these elements into its policies. It's extremely successful in combating the COVID pandemic. It's extremely successful in making a transition to renewable energy. It is extremely successful in investing in the right things in this recovery. I mean, Portugal is really an example to all of us, and I think this needs to be said. It needs to be said because it links into the prize being awarded to the Global Covenant of Mayors, because in Portugal the experience is that you need to have support from people locally to make this transition. It is not by accident that Portugal is arguably has arguably the highest percentage of vaccinations in Europe. I'm not sure if it's the highest, but it's among the highest in Europe, because people believe in each other and have shown solidarity amongst each other. And this is exactly what we need to achieve on a global scale. So this example can help us empower mayors to show to their citizens that this transition is possible. But it also gives the European Union, and I would say the industrialized world, the opportunity to show very materially solidarity with the developing world in showing that this tremendous effort to adapt to what is already the climate crisis, to the consequences we're all facing, that in this adaptation, the Global South is not left alone, and that we demonstrate clearly our commitment in funds, but also in technical assistance, in working on projects together, in sharing experiences, in greening cities, in providing public transport that is zero emission in cities, in looking for solutions in waste management in cities. All these things that we're all working on at a global scale should be shared with mayors and cities that will simply have a bigger challenge because they don't have the funds that other cities have. So I believe that is the importance of awarding the award to the Global Covenant of Mayors. It creates real solidarity, material solidarity, not just in words, but in facts and in finances that will help us overcome this crisis. And, you know, we can overcome this. We can adapt to the climate crisis. We can still stay on the 1.5 degrees, but only if we leave no one behind. And if we demonstrate to all our citizens that they're part of the solution and they will not be left on the side of the road in this transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So with that, we jump for a specific example. And Professor Peter Nyong, I will ask you, how being part of the Sub-Saharan Africa Covenant of Mayors helped the county of Kisumu in your climate action journey?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. Let me first, introduce myself. I come from a city called Kisumu, somewhere in the west of Kenya on the tip of Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is one of the biggest freshwater lakes in the world, the second freshwater lake in the world. And my city is just a few kilometers from the equator. Now, Kisumu is not very old as a city. It became a city about 20 years ago. But before then, it was a very important place of commerce and trade, getting people to trade from all over the place. It was the center of commerce and trade. So it was used to a lot of people gathering together and living. Now, this reminds me of a comment that Governor Stephen Bullock, former governor of Montana, made in Santa Fe when we attended as governors from Kenya the American Association of Governors. And he said one of the things he enjoyed being a governor is really learned that everybody everywhere in the world lives somewhere local, a place you call home. And therefore, the thing that is important to everybody in this world is local government. Be they mayors or governors are we are. Kenya got rid of governors some time ago, and we have city manager and then governors over them. Now, so this idea that we live at a local place somewhere makes climate change very important to us. Mm-hmm. Because, for example, what we experienced a couple of months ago when there was huge rains in Kenya, when the level over the lake rose, so many businesses were destroyed, so many homes were destroyed, primary schools. People had been removed from where they lived to higher areas. They lost property, they lost livelihood, and this was extremely expensive, both for the county and the national government to do something about. What is the moral of this thing, this story? That we need to prevent such disasters rather than wait until they happen. Now, the United Cities and local governments of Africa, which is the equivalent of the Covenant of Mayors, which we belong to, is going to hold a summit in Kisumu in May next year called AfriCities Summit. And the subject matter of that summit is the intermediary cities of Africa, the metropolis of the future. Intermediary cities of about 500,000, 200,000 people are going to the biggest cities in Africa in the next 30 years. If we don't plan them differently and avoid the mistakes we have made so that when global warming comes, we are taken by surprise and we live with destruction among our midst, then we shall just be penny-wise and pounds foolish. We'd rather spend the money now, plan well, have urban habitation where the use of the urban space reflect reflects the necessity of concrete construction and the necessity for the green space. Then we have a balance that human beings can live in a city that is habitable. And therefore, I invite you to Kisumu in May next year, all of you.
Thank you very much.
Come and join us on the intermediate cities in Africa, the metropolis of the world. And let's get all your ideas to see how these cities are going to be planned today to avoid the disasters of global warming. Now, global warming is going to be with us, whether we reduce it 1.5% or not. So let us live with that reality. I don't want another situation in this world where we have been talking sometimes of the new international economic order, water for all by year 2000, and all this happens, we don't have water for all by year 2000.
Yeah.
What we are saying today, are they going to be meaningful in the next 30 years?
Yes.
Let's do something that makes a difference to our children's children, when we're all gone, when the habitable city will be there, whether in Africa, Latin America, or in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we'll definitely save the date for May 2022. Martin Sayan, trustee of the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation. At the UK branch of the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation, we have placed a strong emphasis on community engagement through local authorities as well as national governments. What drove this strategy and what have you done so far? If you can say it in a nutshell, because we have behind schedule.
Sure. I mean, obviously all the reasons that my fellow panelists have given about the importance of cities. But for us, there were two quite personal things. The first was our experience on previous work where we funded a campaign to end loneliness. And we got messages like loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day in the manifestos of all three of the main parties in the UK. But the time when it really got traction was when we targeted the local authorities. And it snowballed, and eventually we ended up with 80% of all of the local authorities, the health and well-being boards, putting together a plan to end loneliness in their area. And that is what really delivered it. So we were very struck by that. And the second thing was there was an alignment between local authorities and what we wanted to do. We wanted to do public engagement, and we wanted to do it based on people's values. Because the research we'd done on climate and previously on ocean was that if you appeal to people's values and go to where they are, rather than just banging them over the head with the science, you have a much better chance, particularly if you're reaching out to the unconverted. And there's always a risk of our preaching to the converted rather than reaching out. And those values are often local values, and it is, as you said, much better to address them locally. I mean, an instance in this country is there is what's known as the Blue Wall, who are the voters who switched to this government to support them and are vital to supporting the government. They're traditionally seen as not being friendly towards the climate and whatever, but our research shows that if you appeal to their values, their desire to preserve nature, which is often local nature, their interest in their children and their grandchildren, and then lastly, their concern to avoid waste. These are all fundamental values that they've got and we can address. And then I guess briefly just to address the second part of your question, which is around what have we discovered so far? And I guess really three things. The first is we funded people on local authorities to work out what is going to work. So we funded a number of organizations to work with local authorities to understand what is going to work, and we'll be publishing that next year. The second is around working with organizations more generally on public engagement. And at this COP, we've got 7 organizations who have agreed a common evaluation framework so that we can look on common measures at what works and what doesn't work. And the last is particularly about your references to the Global South. Our founder was determined that his foundation should benefit all of humanity. Now, naturally, the climate does that. If you're doing mitigation, you're benefiting the whole world. But we wanted to do more than that, and we funded the Citizens Assembly, the Global Citizens Assembly, to bring representatives from around the world to this conference so that their voices can be heard here and we understand what the people who are really facing the difficulties think.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. Isabel Mota, the last question, it's related to the previous one, but in a more broader term. In your opinion, as a president of a big foundation, what is the role of civil society, and in particular foundation, in fighting the climate crisis?
Thank you. Well, my colleague has already said a lot, but I think that foundations has characteristics that are very helpful in what concerns to deal with this kind of problems. First of all, are independent. Second, we don't need to be worried with the cycles of political cycles. So we have a position focused on the long term. And third, well, you have some means, funds, in order to help different actions. There are also some things that Martin has already referred that I think is very important. In our case, we also have an Institute of Science, and so we also can provide science supporting the decisions of the policies. Second, we also we implement innovative solutions for the several projects, and this is something that the foundation can do better than any other institution, is to have risk, and some of them has really a big impact. Third, we are able to make partnerships with other foundations that has the same values and some procedures that we have, and this gives more capacity to our action. And finally, what I think is very important, what Martin has already said, is we are near the people in the communities, and in our case in Africa also, because we have a long program, a big program in Africa for different areas, and this possibility to be with the communities, to understand them, gives us surplus, let us say, to make advocacy, what is very important. And the last thing I think is very important is the capacity, as Martin said, to give awareness to the society, to the public opinion about this kind of issues.
Okay.
Is very, very important that all of us, everybody, every citizen understands that there is something also that has to do with us, with each one. And this is something that foundations can really may have a role.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your contributions. We'll have to finish now. And I ask a big round of applause for our extraordinary speakers. Thank you for coming. Yeah, the video, but they have to okay. So the second project, we already talked about the Senegal project. The second project, supported by the Global Covenant of Mayors with the Gulbenkian Prize, will be in Garoua, Cameroon, to support the development of energy public lighting solutions. So the mayor of Garoua, Dr. Ousmaila Mouhamadou, sent us a short statement about the importance of this support.
Bonjour, je suis le docteur Ousmaila Mouhamadou, maire de la ville de Garoua au Cameroun. La ville de Garoua est signataire de la Convention des maires pour l'Afrique subsaharienne. À ce titre, elle est membre de la Convention mondiale des maires pour le climat et l'énergie un réseau mondial de plus de 11 000 villes qui se sont engagées à œuvrer en faveur du climat. L'impact négatif de la crise climatique actuelle sur notre ville nous a poussé à élaborer notre plan d'action pour le climat pour mieux encadrer les efforts visant à accroître notre résilience et notre capacité d'adaptation au changement climatique. En effet, les défis liés au changement climatique sont nombreux pour la ville de Garoua et ils prennent de l'ampleur chaque jour. Des périodes de sécheresse plus longues, des pluies plus rares, mais très intenses qui causent des inondations et des vents violents. À côté de cela, une démographie et une urbanisation croissante avec un besoin en énergie très élevé. Pour nos populations qui sont par ailleurs très jeunes, notre ville doit donc mettre en place des projets d'infrastructures vertes et résilientes aussi rapidement que possible afin de réduire les émissions et s'adapter au changement climatique. Nous ne pouvons pas y parvenir seuls, car les ressources des collectivités locales restent un défi majeur dans de nombreux pays d'Afrique en général et du Cameroun en particulier. Je suis donc très heureux que le financement du prix Gulbenkian pour l'humanité soit utilisé pour aider Garoua et d'autres villes d'Afrique subsaharienne à aller au-delà de leurs plans et stratégies d'action climatique et à mettre en œuvre des projets durables et utiles pour leur population. Nous sommes également heureux que cet appui s'étende sur le long terme à travers une assistance technique du GECOM afin d'aider les villes à transformer leurs idées d'efficience énergétique en stratégie et en projets prêts à être financés. Nous remercions encore une fois de plus la Fondation Gulbenkian. Grâce à cet appui, nous continuerons à œuvrer pour un système d'éclairage public durable à Garoua, ce qui signifie plus d'emplois, une plus grande sécurité, d'inégalité sociale et une planète saine pour nous tous et les générations à venir.
Okay. So now we'll have the honor to welcome three members of our jury: Miguel Bastos Araújo, Research Professor of the Spanish Research Council and Vice President of our jury; Joanne Rockstrom, Director of Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research; and Hune Ken, Founder and CEO of Friendship NGO. Miguel, I will start by you. In recent years, we have seen the launch of international prizes focused on sustainable development topics. How important are these instruments, prizes, such as the Gulbenkian Award, to help accelerate climate responses?
Can you hear? I don't know if you...
Yes, can you hear?
It's
Well,
fine?
yeah,
Okay.
it's fine for the stream.
Well, thank you. The sheer magnitude and pace of the transformations that are required to adapt and mitigate climate change are such that we need to all swim in the same direction. It has to be a collective effort, but it will be faster, it will be more efficient if we have strong leaders, stronger people and institutions that can speed up that process. Mm-hmm. And awards like the Humanity Award from the Gulbenkian Foundations are exactly trying to do that, to identify those leaders, recognize them and empower them to take action and do good in a more effective and efficient way.
Good, thank you very much. Hune, one of the main goals of the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation is the protection of the most vulnerable population groups, which is also one important mission of this prize. The devastating climate impacts are a sad reality, and the majority of funds, 93% of funds tackling the climate crisis, focus on mitigating. So yesterday we had some commitments around adaptation, but in your opinion, how can institutions as the ONG Friendship can strengthen the adaptation responses now, not in 2030, now?
I think it's voices. I think working in solidarity. Everyone is needed. Last year, the prize was given to Greta. Voices were needed. These voices need to be carried to the decision makers, needed. You also need the scientists to prove, and then you need people, organizations like ours, which are actually the examples. Mm-hmm. We started working with climate vulnerable communities and impacted communities 20 years ago. You know, in trying to ensure that they have a platform from which they can take off. Today, 7 million people annually are accessing our services directly. These are things which need to be brought to the platform because it works, because there are some fundamental things which are beyond just project building. It is beyond, it's with soft skills, values, the way you work, ensuring that when you leave a community behind, you leave them behind with an opportunity, you leave them behind with dignity, and then you leave them behind with hope so that they can continue for their future. And this voice needs to come directly to the decision makers. And I hope that this is what we are doing.
Yes, me too. That is one of the goals too. Professor Joanne Brockstrom, the nexus climate water is usually strongly emphasized by you. As you have seen in one of the videos, the Global Covenant of Mayors will use the Gulbenkian Awards to supply drinking water to vulnerable families in Senegal. In your opinion, how important is the resilience of the water sector in tackling this climate crisis?
If you look at the science, if you look at the science, we know, unequivocally that victim number one with regards to the impacts of global warming is related to fresh water. It is droughts, floods, heat waves, causing water scarcity, causing food insecurity driven by water extremes. So however we twist and turn this, the first line of impact is always related to water extremes. And that hits on top of the already fundamental vulnerability related to water in many of the cities in the world. So you start off in a low resilient point and you amplify extremes related to water degradation, which is, by the way, not only global warming, but it's also water quality deficiencies, lack of water provisioning services, which is exactly what these projects are going to be about. But I want to just raise the challenge even further, because it's one thing to serve communities with healthy, high-quality drinking water, but we know that there's equal large challenge in securing good quality fresh water for food production. So we have this, cities are fundamental in engaging in the entire agenda of water for human security, which is both health and food being a fundamental for health. So yes, I think it's a really good target that the Global Covenant of Mayors is taking on this prestigious prize.
Good. I believe you are right on time now. Yeah. So thank you very much for coming. I will ask again a big round of applause, as this was a very quick panel, but with strategic questions and answers. I believe that we made the difference and we finished very well. So thank you very much for coming and for joining us. And I hope this message will amplify for the future. And just a big round of applause, please. Thank you. Obrigado.